Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're back working on the Isuzu again today. I haven't been able to get a gas tank for it yet. Everything in my area is pretty much rusted out. I'm trying to get one from down south, but a lot of shops won't ship them because of the fuel order. And a new tank is like 2 months out, so I'm trying to get a used tank. I only have a couple weeks left before I'm supposed to be taking this thing out to Utah, so this may put a damper on the trip. I may have to reschedule, we'll see. Today we're just going to work on the suspension. I've got a set of new springs for the back, and then we'll crank up the torsion bars in the front. This thing rides really rough right now because the springs are sagged out in the back, and it always bottoms out. Even just in town, it bottoms out on any little bump. So we'll get that fixed, and then from there, maybe I'll pull the body lift out, or at least cut the body lift down so it's not sitting up quite so high. So yeah, let's get after it. But I bought a set of old man new springs. So these are OME 912s, dual rate spring. They're 180 pounds per inch, I think, to 300. So they should be quite a bit better than what's on their factory. But we'll get this thing up in the air and keep going. Before we get going, I'll just measure from the ground to the fender on each side just so we know. Right about 38 inches right now. Passenger side's a little lower at 37 3/4. Get this thing up in the air. Alright, so here's what we have. There's the factory springs. I did put some airbags in this when I first got it just to help with prevent the bottoming out. That was 5 years ago or so. I've got some Ranchos on here. The factory shocks were much better, but they were completely rusted out, so I couldn't save them. So I put some Rancho 9000, the adjustables on here. They're okay. I haven't been real thrilled with them. I'm hoping this is just dirt and it's not actually leaking. We'll have to take a look at that when we get it loose. So anyways, we're going to start by supporting this axle. I'll pull the shock off, and then we got to look at the parking brake cables. Are super tight right now just because they are mounted to the body up there, and with the body lift on, these are tight when the axle's hanging down, so we'll have to loosen that up, give them some extra play before we drop the axle down to replace the springs. And yes, this thing is fairly rusty underneath. The frame's completely solid yet, but it does have some holes. The body's in kind of rough shape. See if we can just break this loose first. So I'll see if I can get this bracket out for the parking brake cable, just to give that a little more room to hang so it's not so tight. I did spray this last week just to try and free up some of the rust. Leave that hanging there for now. It's nice and loose. See if we can get that shock off now. Well, bad news on these shocks too. These are completely blown out. Huh. There's oil all over the shaft on that thing. So those didn't last very long. Granted, I put them on 4 or 5 years ago, but they only have probably less than 5,000 miles on them. Alright, so I'm just going to pull these shocks off. Since they're both leaking back here, I'll have to replace those. I think I'll go with Bilstein or something if I can find the right model for this thing. Pretty disappointed in those. They were kind of an expensive shock. And like I said, I think I only have probably less than 5,000 miles on them. So it didn't last very long. So the fronts, I checked the fronts, they're not leaking yet. They're also Rancho 9000, the adjustable ones. I'll just leave those on the front for now. But the back two are both leaking. So get the shocks out, get the springs out, and then we'll kind of go from there. Take a closer look at the shock quick. So these are, like I said, about 5 years old, right around 5,000 miles on them. As you can see, oil's leaking all over the place out of the top of them. Now we're just going to lower this down some more. So that axle's just hanging freely now. Slide the spring out. And these are air lines for the airbags. I'm not going to need those anymore. Alright. Here's the difference between the new springs and the old springs. You can see the new ones are quite a bit taller. And also look at the diameter of the spring itself. Alright, with the axle hanging down like this, the new springs should fit right up in there, even though they're a little longer. So the flat part goes towards the top. And there's a notch for this bottom of the spring to fit into on the bottom axle. Then for the time being, since I don't have any new shocks, I'm going to jack this axle back up and just put the shocks on just to hold it in place. Alright, so here's kind of what it looks like so far. Keep in mind the body lift has to come out yet. It's got like a 3-inch body lift, so I'll remove that, get the body back on the frame like it was from the factory, and then we'll just have the suspension lift. So we'll measure this as is quick, just so we know, have a reference on how high to lift the front. And you should let it bounce and settle a little bit too before you measure, but this will give us a rough idea for now. So I was at 38 before, now I'm about 40 and a half. Alright, so next up I'm going to move to the front. I'm going to measure this fender clearance quick. From the ground to the fender is roughly about 37 1/4. And this has got torsion bar front suspension, so I'll jack this thing up and then kind of show you what we have to do. Alright, so here's the torsion bars here, all the way up to the front A-arm. And back here is the adjustment for it right here. So you just tighten these down. It's supposed to be, I think 4 to 5 turns, full turns is 1 inch of lift. So I need to go about 10 turns on each side. So what I did is I just put a little whiteout mark on that bolt up there so I can count how many revolutions it does. And then I'll just put an impact wrench on it and see if I can get it to move. It's pretty rusty, so this could be a real challenge. So I did get it to break loose, but I lost my mark. Had some rust come off and the mark came off with the rust. So remark it quick. Get some hearing protection, try this again. Alright, that was about 10 revolutions on that side. We'll do the same thing over here. So you can just barely see my white mark up there. Hopefully this one doesn't break off right away, we'll see. Kind of work it back and forth. One went just fine, this one's not moving. So I'm going to soak this thing down some more and then I'll be back here in a few minutes. Now we're going to try this again. Been soaking for about 10 minutes and compressor's back up to about 160 pounds. So starting to move. Work it back and forth a little bit here. What's that?
Any luck?
Yeah, it's moving.
Oh, good. I did it.
All right, so I'm just going to count the turns again and then go 10 revolutions. Maybe. I got to work it back and forth a little bit. should be it. All right, so I'm just gonna get this thing on the ground, measure that front suspension just to get an idea where it's at, and we'll go from there. All right, so that's where it's sitting at this point. Obviously super high. So we were at about what, 37 1/4. Now we're about 39 3/4. So this isn't a real good representation because the suspension has to settle. You should take it for a drive before you measure that. But it gives us a good idea. I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm going to wait till I get the new shocks and back to do the final, and then drop the body mounts out before I do the final adjustments on the suspension. And then we'll go through and do an alignment and swap out the front ball joints too. So that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.